So we don't want to stay in that grieving state forever.
That's right.
But there is a period that you should give me to grieve and let this flow out of me,
Right.
so I can empty out.
Right.
And then new growth and new ideas and a future should start sprouting up.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Second verse, and Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father, and the physicians embalmed Israel. This is the first mention of physician. What other place can you think of when the word physician is used? Any other in the Bible? This is
Luke was a physician.
And they were asking, does the one that's well, it's a scripture, do the well need a physician? You know, I was thinking about that. And then in the Old Testament, Luke was a physician. And then in the Old Testament, Asa, it was saying he called on the physician as opposed to calling on God. He had something wrong with his feet, gout maybe, and he was calling on man, dependent on man. And it was emphasizing that we really need to call on God, not man, for let God be our physician. So the physicians embalmed Israel being Jacob. Now, embalming was typical for the Egyptians because they believed that the dead went to the next world in their physical body, and the embalming preserved that body so they can function in the next world with that body. So the Egyptians, that was their thing. And where were God's chosen people at the time? In Egypt. So these were their customs. Now, embalming was unusual for God's chosen people because they were nomads. What's a nomad? A wanderer, somebody that's not, stationed in one place. They were nomadic shepherds. And but they allowed the family to embalm him because they say, and they embalmed Israel as a sign of courtesy and respect to the Egyptians because that's where they lived. Okay, when you think of embalming, what do you think? What's going on? It's a tedious process. What comes out? All your fluids, your brain. Back here they were saying the brain and your innards come out. And they remove it from your head and from the body and fill you with spices. They put all kind of spices in there. Pardon? What I say? So after being soaked in these spices, for 70 days, then the body is washed and wrapped and bandaged in linen, and it's covered with gum, they said back then, some type of gum. And then it's placed in a wooden case, and now you're embalmed. And this is what the Egyptians did, so this is what they did to Jacob out of respect and courtesy of the Egyptians in whose town they lived, because that was their process and procedure. And 40 days were fulfilled for him, for so are fulfilled the days of those which are embalmed. So, and the Egyptians mourned for 70 days. What is 70? 70. So we just said 40 days was fulfilled. So where does 70 come from?
Was it the travel time?
No, not the travel time. It was just the additional 30 days that it remained in this solution, these spices, because the Egyptians, that was their process. So a total, it would have been the 40 days for the mourning and then the additional 30 days that it remained in that solution. So for national mourning, it was that 30 days, that additional 30 days. And when the days of mourning were past, Joseph spake unto the house of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found grace Grace where?
In your eyes.
In your eyes. Speak, I pray you, in the ear of Pharaoh, saying, okay, and then it goes to 5. My father made me swear, saying, lo, I die in my grave, which I dig for me in the land of Canaan. There shalt thou bury me. Now therefore let me go up, I pray thee, and bury my father, and I will come again. What sticks out in your mind when he's talking to somebody else, telling them to go talk to Pharaoh? What comes to mind? Because in times past, he's second in command, so he went to Pharaoh whenever he wanted to. So why now is he not going? Why is he saying, speak to Pharaoh and tell him I need to go bury my daddy? What's going on, you think?
That's a question. Is he afraid?
No, not afraid. Okay, think on the embalming part of it. The Egyptians, when there was that process going on, they didn't wash, they didn't shave, they didn't do any of the normal things that they would do. Can you imagine not maintaining hygiene for 40 days? For another 30 days?
So you didn't want to approach Pharaoh?
You can't go before royalty any kind of way. So he was in the process of the mourning and everything that went on with his father, and true to custom of the Egyptians, he didn't shave either. He didn't take a bath either. He didn't do all of that either, and you can't go before royalty in any way. Remember when they got him out of the dungeon, what did they do?
They cleaned him up.
They cleaned him up. They said, clean him up and take him how? Take him how to Pharaoh? Hastily. Remember that word we said, hastily? Remember? So, same principle. So that is a reason. So it was against the law to appear in mourning apparel in public, and especially in the presence of royalty. And in the morning you didn't shave and you weren't presentable. So he wasn't presentable to go, so he had to have somebody speak for him. All right, so Joseph had proven himself trustworthy. He said, let me go bury my father and I'll come back. I'll come back. And Joseph had proven himself trustworthy as Pharaoh's advisor. He had a good record, and Pharaoh had no problem saying, go do what you need to do. He felt that he would come back, didn't he?
Yes.
And privileges and freedom often result when you're trustworthy. You know, you get the key to the office, you're trustworthy. Do they give the thief the key?
No.
Not, so privileges and freedom usually come if you're trustworthy. And then you break that trust, then that's taken away from you. I find in the working world, they'll give you these things, but what? They're watching you anyway. Yeah, they do. They give you're going to be the manager, but they're watching you anyway. They put you in charge of some money, but they're watching you anyway. So to be trustworthy, I wouldn't take a dime. I wouldn't take you wouldn't give them the satisfaction of saying, I knew she was going to do that. I knew she was going to do that. I worked with at the bank, and they made this young person, I don't even think he was 25, they made him a little supervisor, and they gave him a purse of $2,000 for, small transaction. What do you think he did? He took it. I said, I could have just shook him. They watch you. You think they gave you that $2,000 and weren't watching you? He took it and disappeared. Of course, they caught up with him because $2,000 is only going to take you where? To 95th Street. You can't go anywhere with $2,000. So he just messed up himself, his record. He won't get another job like that. He was in a position where he could have grown, but the enemy makes you what? He makes you stupid. So we have to be mindful when you get these privileges and opportunity that we stand trustworthy, and as children of God, what? That shouldn't be an issue. I'm a king's kid. You don't have to watch me. That should be the case. Is it the case all the time with the king's kids? All right. 6, and Pharaoh said, go up and bury your father according as he have made you swear. So Pharaoh had a lot of confidence in Joseph, didn't he? And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, and all the house of Joseph, and his brothers, and his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Canaan. So they had a whole host of people going where? Going to Canaan to bury who? To bury Israel, Jacob. All right, and there went up with them both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor at Atad, a place near Jericho, which is beyond the Jordan, and they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation. It was a funeral service. It was a funeral service. I went to a funeral service last week for a dear friend of mine, and it was very jubilant and joyful, and we had a good time. There was a sadness because she was gone, but, you know, if she had a good life, you didn't have to get up there and stutter and talk general. You know, people trying to make stuff sound good when they don't really have anything good to say. We didn't have to search for words for her because she lived the life she sung about. And we feel that she was reflecting the image of Christ. And they made a mourning for his father for 7 days. So we know that the Egyptians, they don't bathe, they don't anoint themselves, they don't do a lot of eating, they don't put on any new garments, and they put ash on the heads and they grow beards, and they do this, and when it's over with, they get up and wash themselves and go on about their business. But 70 days is a long time. I would be scratching, itching and stuff, you know. Can't go that long. 7 days, you know, not 70 days. It's not even comfortable to go 7 days. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning on the floor at Atad, they said, this is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians, wherefore the name of it was called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond Jordan. So they took on the custom of the Egyptians, and everybody said, wow, I don't know who died, but they sure having a big funeral, you know. Mm-hmm. So, and his sons did unto him according as he commanded them. For his son carried him into the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham bought with the field for a possession for a burying place, and he bought it from the Hittites, didn't he? Mm-hmm. Who did he bury there?
His wife.
His wife, Sarah. All right. And he had purchased that for his wife, and we find that back in the 23rd chapter. And it was a place for the entire family, because who else was buried there besides Jacob is going there now. Who was buried there already? Yeah. Sarah, Abraham, Isaac, the whole family. This was the family plot. This was the family plot. So everybody's saying, take me home. Take me home. So they wanted to bury there, and this is expressing, so to say, take me there, what comes to mind? What triggers in your mind when everybody's saying, take me back to Canaan? Take me back to Canaan. What triggers in your mind as where their mind is, where their stance is? What had God promised them?
That promised him that land.
That land. So if everybody's saying, take me there, it's showing faith that God is going to do what he said he's going to do, right? Otherwise, just bury me wherever I am. No, take me back. Because God had promised. Do they have it yet? No. They don't even have a multitude like the sand and the dust and the stars yet. But God said it. It somebody brought a message. What? God said it. I believe it. And what? That settles it. That settles it. And that should be our premise on our everyday life. God said it. I believe it. That settles it. Do we stand on that? God said it. I'm going to think about it. I'll wait and see. I can see what I can do. You know, God said it. I believe it. That settles it. That's the way it should be. If it's written in his word, it shouldn't be any sub-notes. You know, like these contracts, they write it in small print, and you don't read that, of course. You just go ahead and sign it until something goes wrong, and then they show you. They don't show you that fine print when you sign and do that. Right. They don't show you, but if something go wrong, here it is right here. Why didn't you show me that when I was signing? Right. You know, so that catch is in there. So that, to me, showed that they had faith that God's promise would become reality, and not necessarily when. Today, even in their lifetime. He promised Abraham. Abraham wasn't around. He promised Isaac. Isaac wasn't around. So it wasn't even in their lifetime, but it was described as to your what? Starting with a D. Your descendants. Your descendants. So the blessings that God is promising may not come to fruition in my time. Maybe my grandbaby will reap the benefits of that, you know? Mm-hmm. Okay, 14, and Joseph returned to Egypt. He said he'd be back. Pharaoh believed it. So Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brethren and all that went up to bury his father. And after he had buried his father, now compare this trip to his first trip. What do you see? He returned to Egypt. When did he go to Egypt before? Compare it. What's the difference here?
He's free now.
I'm free. I'm free.
You can compare it to Jacob and Israel. The first trip was a Jacob trip. The second trip is an Israel
trip. All right. So the first trip, who saw to him? Who was his sponsors with the first trip? Who was his sponsors? His brothers gave around.
One way.
No, not a round trip. One way through the pit. Through the pit. No, let's not kill him. Let's just sell him to these merchants that were going where? To Egypt. So he went down as a captive. This time he's going back second in command. So you see how God can turn it around. He can turn it around. You just got to keep believing him.
Yes.
You had a thought.
And now he's his brother also there.
Yes.
Right.
That's it. That's another point. That's another point. Before they sent him, they sponsored him. This time they're going together under a better family relationship, right? Isn't that beautiful? How God can turn it around? All right, so there was a difference there. Because they had put him in the pit, took him out and sold him for how many pieces of silver? How many was it? I think we had these same question answers the last time we asked. How many was Jesus?
30.
And it wasn't the same as Jesus. So how many was it? 20. Had to be 20. Wasn't the same as Jesus. Okay. And when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, Joseph will peradventure hate us and will certainly requite, retaliate, avenge, payback, payback time. So they've been carrying this all these years, haven't they? You know you done something wrong and you know you didn't pay the bill, the doorbell rang. Do you go to the door and just open it up and say, hey, or do you look out the window? You know, because you know something, you know, something's what? Afoot. Something's afoot. He will certainly requite us of all the evil which we did unto him. And under the law, it was allowed, wasn't it? What does Matthew 5:38 say? What?
Eye for an
eye for an eye, and what? It was allowed under the law. You kill my dog, I'm killing your cat. You know, but, you know, when Jesus come, he said, no, let's not be so hasty. But when under grace, it wasn't allowed, was it? And they sent a messenger unto Joseph, saying, thy father did command before he died, saying, remember Daddy told you to be nice to us. Daddy said to forgive us, you know. So shall ye say unto Joseph, forgive, I pray thee now, the trespasses of thy brethren and their sins, for they did unto thee evil, and now we pray thee, forgive the trespass of the servants of the God of thy father. And Joseph cried. He was tender-hearted, wasn't he? He was compassionate. He was loving. He was reflecting the image of Christ. God wants us to have compassion. He wants us to love. He wants us to forgive. He wants us to think twice before we just throw you out with the water, you know. And his brethren also went and fell down before him, and they said, behold, we'll be your servants. Don't kill us. We'll be your servants. Now, where did this servant idea come from?
Dream.
Pardon?
Talking about the dream?
The dream. The dream. You will bow down to me. And what was their attitude then? Who you think you are? He said this is the 5th time that, you know, he was saying the stalks of corn and they bowed and the stars bowed and you bowed, and when they went to get the food they bowed. So this is the 5th time that this prophecy that they laughed at and was, you know, sarcastic about, now they're saying it again, we'll be your servants. You know, so God will make, can make, will make, maybe he'll make, but he can do it if he wants to. Your enemy, your what? Your footstool. God can turn it around. He can fix it. It seems impossible. And with our little logic, it is impossible. But with God, all things are possible, isn't it? So this was the 5th time that this had come about, and each time it just reinforced what he said way back. How old was he when he came whistling through the field saying that? He was about 17 years old. And they looked at him and said, you are nuts. Look at, here he comes. We're going to kill that sucker. Oh, God is just so good. Isn't it amazing how God will protect you? And he back then, he wasn't, or tell me, what was his state of mind when he said these things? He was innocent. He wasn't boastful or bragging. He was just saying what he had dreamed. And it just like nails on a blackboard. It just irritated them to no end. And even his father said, son, you got to tone it down. You can't talk like that. You know, you can't talk like that. And Joseph said unto them, fear not, for am I in the place of God? What is that talking about? Am I in the place of God? What's God's job?
Judge.
To judge. So am I in the place of God that I judge and I punish? So Joseph is really have truly what? Forgiven them. Truly forgiven. True forgiveness. Now what if I bring it up when we get to arguing? Have I forgiven you? You know what you did 2 years ago.
He just said forgive.
And I still got an attitude and my nose still spread.
And you haven't forgiven it. You haven't forgiven.
I have not forgiven. I have not forgiven. If you still breathing hard and snorting, you have not forgiven. I don't care what you say. I forgive you, but I haven't forgot it. You know, and rolling the head and, you know, jerking the neck. You ain't forgive nothing. You didn't forgive, and now you're doing what? You're lying. Now you're lying, and God hates a liar. You know, so we really have to be careful of that, because the enemy wants to keep it fresh. Because he's standing there with the salt to do what? Pour it on the wound. Let me get this stirred up again. Let me bring all of this back so she can react again. So you have to let it go. Let it go. Praise God. He said, am I in the place of God? I'm the one that do the judging and the punishing? And he knows his place, doesn't he? Yeah. Mother Cantrell brought that message that one time that I'll never forget. What was it? Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Don't try to do God's job. Stay in your lane. But as for you, this is Joseph talking, as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good. So if somebody is being deliberate and somebody's trying to sabotage, just kind of smile. Because nothing happens to me that God don't know about.
That's right.
Nothing. And I told you all the story, I'm sure, haven't I? About the manager that was just firing brimstones and was going to make everybody quit or fire them. And I just prayed every time I went to a meeting. I prayed. I said, Jesus, it's me and you going in this meeting. And ain't no devil in hell going to walk on to Jesus and me. I did that for 5 years. And the Lord turned that thing around. They took her whole staff, 30 people. They took them away from her and put her on special assignment. What do you think special assignment is? One position from out the door. She had the job special assignment of looking for old files, 20-year-old files. So she had to go down in the basement and get on her knees in the dust and look for files. And the Lord said we're not supposed to rejoice, but I smiled a lot. I smiled a lot when she got reassigned, because she was just up here and thought she was all of that. And I was down there one day when I just feel so bad. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I said, it looks like you need a hug. You know, this lady laid her head on my shoulder, and I hugged her. This is the one that was beating me and doing everything she could to get me out of there. But God, that's a personal testimony of how miraculous God is and how he will turn it around. He'll turn it around. So David said, you thought it for evil, but God meant it for good. As it is this day to do what? To save much people. God used Joseph to save much people, his chosen people. He got them a place where he wanted them to be. And it just grows from there, doesn't it? The evil his brothers did, Potiphar's wife, we know the V that we had. Her accusations, the butler's what? Neglect, amnesia, and the 7 years of famine. But God had a plan, and he tells us what? I know what? I know what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, and we need to just quit it and trust him. That's the bottom line, right? Now, therefore, fear ye not. I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spake kindly unto them. Joseph had totally forgiven them. Now he said, fear not. I'm going to take care of y'all. You tried to kill me, but I'm going to take care of you. Now, total forgiveness. If you halfway forgive them, I forgive you, but I won't see you no more. Is that forgiveness? He said, no. It is. I don't want you around me no more.
No.
I ain't going to take care of you.
No.
I ain't going to take care of the kids.
Not forgiveness.
That's
not forgiveness.
That's not forgiveness. Total forgiveness.
Not forgetting.
You throw it where? In the sea of forgetfulness, as if you didn't know it. And for human beings, that's difficult. That's difficult. But he he simply demonstrated God's forgiveness to who?
To his brother.
God's forgiveness to us. While we were yet acting ugly, while we were yet doing wrong, while we were, hitting him over the head and putting the thorns on his head and the blood running down in the eye. God, he said, what did he say? Did he say, get him, God, get him? He's hanging up here in pain. What did he say?
Father, forgive them.
Father, forgive them. Now, that's true forgiveness. And what did we sing? I want to be like Jesus. I want to be like him. Blood running down your eye. And you saying, forgive her? She don't know what she's doing? Yes, she do know what she's doing. She ain't crazy. So the more we stay in God's word, the more we see, as the pastor what? How much we are not like him. Praise God. And Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's house, and Joseph lived 110 years. So how many years did he live in Egypt? He was how? Right. So how many years is that? He was 17 when he started strutting to the field to talk to the brothers, and their anger grew with every step he drew near, and he was 110. So who's the math person?
He's over 90.
About 93. About 93. 93 and 17 is what? 110, I bet. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation. The children also of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were brought unto Joseph's knee. And Joseph said unto his brothers, I die, and God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land unto the land which he sware to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. So Joseph had no doubts, even down this far in the descendants. He was still saying what his father said, what his grandfather said, what his great-grandfather said, that God will bring you out of this land and take you to the land of promise. And this, and the secret of this kind of faith is what? What is the secret of strong faith in God? What is the secret? What do we have to do day by day by day by year by year by year? A lifestyle. Die to self and trust him. No matter what the situation, because flesh wants to kick up a solution, right? No matter what it is, the train is coming. My house falling in. Whatever, you got to have that same stance. I trust God. Even if you got to cry saying it, I trust God.
Amen.
You got to trust him. And you keep doing that all your life, then you can stand on faith and know that God will. But you got to trust him every second. It can't be a sometime. He says itself, what? I'd rather have you what? How to call? I don't want you wishy-washy. I don't want you today. I don't know who you are today, whether I got to walk on eggshells today, whether you're going to speak to me today. We don't even want that, do we? We want a person that when you speak to them, you're speaking to them. When you're talking to them, you don't have to watch your words because they're taking it wrong. So God wants you to be all for him. What? Holy or what? Filthy. Holy, holy still. Filthy, filthy still. So we have to trust him every day of our life, and then we can stand in faith, believing in him. So Joseph had his children a promise that to leave him in Egypt.
No.
What did he say?
He wanted them to carry bones to
when y'all leave here, and I know God's going to deliver you. He didn't know when. He said, but I know God's going to deliver you. And when he does, take me home. Take me home. I'm going to put we have 10 minutes. I'm going to put this down. Oh, well, name them for me.
Reuben, Simeon, Levi,
Somebody else gonna give me some? My ears stopped up, I guess. Who else?
Zebulon, Asher, Dan, Issachar. Benjamin, Joseph.
Okay. Now, who are some of the descendants that came from them? Can you think of anybody?
Jesus is the lion from the tribe of Judah.
Okay, she took the easy one. Everybody had a chance to say the one they know. Oh, who was before Jesus?
Oh.
He's the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. What's that song? He's the son of
David, seed of Abraham.
So David, we know, came from here, and that led to Jesus. Okay, we got the easy one. Or maybe it's not the easy one.
Paul came from Benjamin.
Paul came from Benjamin. Okay, and who was the first king?
Saul.
Okay, so we know Saul. What lady that said, I'm going? Who? Esther. She said, I'm going. Where was she going? To see the king. I'm going. Uh-huh. So Saul. I should have asked baby girl that. She knew that. Okay, and then Paul. Okay. Anybody else you can think of came from anybody? Okay, so we know from last week that what? He had lost his spot and no good thing was coming from him. So, and these are notable descendants we're thinking about. You know, descendants could have come, but notable descendants. So, nothing there.
How about, what's his name, Zechariah, the Levite?
Nothing there.
John's dad.
John's dad, a Levite. Who are you saying?
Zechariah. John the Baptist.
Yeah. I don't have him on my list, but my list didn't. Who else was coming from Levi? Who was Moses' brother?
Oh, Aaron. Oh, yeah.
And so Aaron and who? His brother?
Miriam.
These and then who fell out the window? Or whose son were bad?
Oh, Eli.
And then John the Baptist. Okay. Where did Samson come from? Elijah came from Nephilia.
Was Samson from Dan?
Yes, he was. Who was Samson?
A Danite.
Danite. All right. Can you think of any more?
God told David that one of his descendants would sit on the throne, and Solomon was one that became king of Israel.
Yeah, Solomon came through Judah. Asher, Nun. Issachar, Nun. And Saul should be in here. Okay, who came from Joseph?
Manasseh and Ephraim.
Okay. His two sons. Who else? Who took over when Moses was gone?
Joshua.
And Joshua. Who was the one that said, God said, you got too many. I got to cut them down. You got too many. Who said that? Who was he talking about? It was so many thousands, and then they cut it down again. That was Gideon. Gideon. Okay, where did Gideon come from? Joseph. So it was Joshua. And who else came from Joseph? Start with an S. Samuel. So we got Saul, Esther, and Paul. We got his two sons, Joshua, Gideon, Issachar, Nun, Asher, Nun. What about Gad? Okay, Nephaniah was one of the judges. And Elijah. So as we go down the line, we're going to see, when we see these people, we can kind of keep in our mind which tribe they came from. Kind of hard to read, challenging to read down there. All right. Any questions or concerns? We have finished Genesis. Let's give ourselves a hand for Genesis. It took us a year. We started May the 10th. A few days before May 10th, and this is the first Sunday in June. So it took us a year, but I feel that it was informative. We're not rushing because we're not ready to occupy our mansion in heaven, are we? So we're going to be here a while. So we might as well study God's Word. So we're doing the history and going through it, and the pastor's teaching us as an overlay what we need to do to see His face in peace. And we'll have a little foreknowledge of the history and the background of where it all started and what God's plan was. The part we know of His plan. We'll never know everything about God. We can live another zillion years and we'll never know the full mind of God. Any questions or concerns? Okay, where are we going next? Where are we going? Exodus. It's going to be exciting. We're going to Exodus. What's going to happen in Exodus? We're going to learn a lot before we get to that exit, right? But eventually, God's going to tell them to make haste, and that's what we want to get to. But I thank you all for attending Sunday school and going through the lessons with me step by step, and I hope it has been beneficial to you. It has been to me. I loved it. I loved it. Okay, we thank God. That's the end of our Sunday school. That's the end of Genesis. And I'm going to put this away, and it'll be a reference material for Genesis. And we see all the things we did. We had maps and we had names and all of us in there. Pretty good record. I'll probably reference this a lot. So I'm going to get a new one, and then we're going to start Exodus. Amen?
Amen.
Thank God for the Sunday school.